Hello, Mr. Goodrow.
Hello.
How are your first impressions from the Art Cologne? There were a lot of discussions about changing the date. Now, the third day of the fair, what can you already say about the fair?
We have in our special section Open Space, the kind of motto this year is called A Springtime Revolution. Well, I had the feeling that it's for the whole fair, not just for Open Space, because there's just a springtime feeling. Everyone's very positive. You can see it in the visitors, in the exhibitors, the museum people that are coming. The sales have reflected this. There's been fantastic sales already. Okay. It's just a good feeling in general.
Okay. Already at the last Art Cologne, you chose to reduce the numbers of participating galleries and to change the look of the fair. How can you describe this process? Is it already finished, or is it more a slow development? For example, there are now more exhibitors than last year in November.
In the past couple of years, we've made a lot of changes, not just the addition of open space and reducing the fair, changing the date. There's slightly more more exhibitors this time than last time, a little bit more. But in general, basically, after all these years of changes constantly, also in terms of the turbulent market and all the changes that are taking place internationally, what we want to do now is offer a little bit of stability. Most of the changes have taken place. You'll see minor things being improved year for year, but basically right now it's time to settle down and say, we've come to where we want to be. Now it's just a matter of raising the quality.
Concurrently, there are two smaller fairs in Cologne and the DC Art Fair in Düsseldorf. The ones in Cologne can be described as satellite fairs, but the approach of the DC is to choose international operating galleries. From your point of view, can the DC be a danger for the Art Cologne, or is this development a chance for the whole region? And can the Art Cologne also benefit from this constellation?
To be honest, I think that the three fairs are comparable in a certain sense. I think they're all satellites, which I don't mean in any way negative, but none of these fairs would exist without the Art Cologne. DC has a marketing policy where they present themselves as being a major fair. International doesn't make you great. The quality of the works makes you great. The fair opened yesterday. We'll see if it's a great fair or not. We have the saying in Cologne that you have to gönne, so that you should give them a chance. Let's see what happens. In general, I think it is a sign of how good the Art Cologne has become, because if we weren't good, we wouldn't have three satellites around us. And I think that the art market is strong enough in the region and in Germany in general to take care of all of this. There's enough buyers out there. If we'll benefit from it, maybe, because maybe it shows the strength of the region for the outside world. Maybe it's another reason to come. But again, we'll see. I mean, we're in the middle of the Art Cologne, the beginning of Düsseldorf. Brussels is opening today. Frankfurt closed last week. Vienna opens up next week. We'll see what happens.
The DC Düsseldorf gets a strong support from the city council. There already were complaints by gallerists about less support from the city of Cologne. What can you say about that?
I find it interesting from the side of galleries that it's somehow expected that cities support them. I've never heard of, let's say, the fashion industry expecting the city to help shops, or let's say hairdressers expecting the city to help them. Galleries are shops in the end, like everyone else. Of course, it's a cultural benefit for a city, but basically it's not the city's responsibility. It's our responsibility as a fair company to take care of our clients, and we're happy when the museums participate. But I'm talking about the museums, not the city. And by the way, I know that the Düsseldorf Fair has as much or as little support from the city government than we do. So it's not any more or less. This morning, the Art Cologne Prize was awarded to Erhard Klein, and the Oberbürgermeister, the Lord Mayor of Cologne, praised the Art Cologne and gave his support of the Art Cologne. I haven't heard this yet from the Mayor of Düsseldorf. So I think there's too much talk about competition between Cologne and Düsseldorf, between the cities and what the cities do or don't do. I don't care what the city does. I care about what we do, and if we're doing a good job or not.
Okay. Talking about tradition, the Art Cologne is the oldest art fair in the world. The change of the date was also a decision because other younger art fairs took place at the same time. So I think while planning this fair you had to think in two directions. First, to keep the tradition, and second, to bring the fair in a new era. So how difficult was to unite these two processes? Or do you think in other terms?
No, it's exactly what I've been doing from the start. You know, I started here 3.5 years ago, and from the very beginning I said that the thing that's special about Art Cologne is that it has a tradition. It's an advantage to be so old. It can be a disadvantage if you let it be that, but it's been my saying, my motto from the start for the Art Cologne: tradition with a blick towards the future. With a view towards the future. Sometimes it's just with German and English, but I think you can have both. And because we're a fair that has classical, modern, and contemporary art, you need to have both anyway. I think, for example, open space seems like a new thing, but in a certain sense, maybe it grew out of the Köln Sculptur project that we did years ago, or maybe it grew out of the Unfair, which was a kind of anti-fair against the Art Cologne years ago. It's a part of this whole tradition, and at the same time something new. So even there, something that looks completely new is part of a tradition. Like I say, and with the newer fairs, they need to build tradition. And I think that's the idea of tradition might sound old-fashioned, but especially in today's market, where there's so much talk about investment and it goes so quickly, it's like more like the fashion industry. I think if there's one thing that we can offer with our tradition, and that's stability and continuity and trust. And these are, on the market, great things.
Okay, last question. For this year you announced the art fair in Majorca, the Art Cologne Majorca. What were the reasons for this decision, and can you already say a few details about the fairs, how many galleries, and stuff like this?
The idea for the Art Cologne Palma de Mallorca arose because we thought, maybe we can export the idea of the Art Cologne and benefit here as well from it. We saw a great potential in the Spanish market, in the Mediterranean market, and wanted to show that that Europe can be a great marketplace, and that the German and Spanish markets are strong enough to take care of this. It'll be a relatively small fair. It'll take place within the airport of Palma de Mallorca for the first couple of years, because they're building a new fair center. But it's Spain. It takes a little bit longer than it would maybe here. We'll have about 65 galleries. It'll be like the Art Cologne in the sense that it'll have the whole century represented, classical, modern, up to new contemporary. Hopefully, we're working on it, but hopefully there'll also be an outdoor sculpture project along with it. I think it'll be exciting. It'll be, the sister of Art Cologne, but different. If the Art Cologne is very down to earth, because that's the way Cologne is, I think the Art Cologne Palma de Mallorca will be a little bit more glamorous because of the characters of the city. I think any fair has to be a part of the city it's in and reflect the city in its own character. So, yeah, a smaller sister, but a powerful one.
Okay, and you will bring some collectors into Majorca because it's on an island and it happens in the airport. So, is there? Do you support collectors to get to Majorca, or how will this work?
We will, of course, have a program, a support program to attract collectors to come. Yeah. But the great thing about Majorca is that they're already there. They're there on holiday. They own houses or estates or apartments, and these are collectors from all over the world. I mean, there's the prejudice that Majorca is maybe a German state because there's so many Germans there, but it's also Scandinavian and British and American, and it's actually quite cosmopolitan. So yeah, we'll do a lot to attract collectors, but there's a lot that we can count on site.